Well, hi everyone. Welcome back to Masterbooks, the recipe for Homeschool Success 2024 online summit. Desiree Roderick is with me today. She is a mom of Masterbooks. She works for Masterbooks. You've probably seen her in the app and the Facebook group. She is going to talk to us today about teaching with timelines and the creative ways you can use the timelines that Masterbooks provides. I hope that you're ready to take some notes because timelines are super fun, super important way to help your student learn. And we have more than you might imagine. Thanks, Desiree, for joining me.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about how a family uses a timeline with their history to set themselves up for homeschooling success.
Yes, this is a great way to provide a little bit of creativity in our homeschools, especially in history, which sometimes can feel a little bit dry, but this is a great opportunity. At Masterbooks, we usually talk about or encourage family that the curriculum books are the tools and we are the carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
And if we think about it in the recipe analogy, the way that I like to think about it is we have our courses, our history courses, as our main base recipe. And a lot of us like to take those recipes and kind of tweak them to fit our own families, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I like to do that, adding different spices that I think would taste good, or maybe removing some of them that I know my family wouldn't like. And so using timelines is just like that. I think it can really make history an exciting subject, and it doesn't have to be dry or boring, and it really puts the historical events into context for better understanding. So that is super important.
Good deal. So explain what a timeline is for people that are new to homeschooling. What exactly is a timeline and why do we need to use it?
Yeah, it's not very complicated. It's just putting historical events in context in a chronological order so that students can get a comprehensive view, kind of a bird's eye view maybe, of what history looks like. And that can be broken up into small chunks or maybe like a very large chunk from creation all the way to the present. So
Right. So it really helps the student to see history visually and to be able to, like you were saying, put it in chunks. Like this is what happened in these areas of the world all at this same time.
right.
So how would you introduce a timeline into your family's learning schedule, into maybe it's a brand new thought and so they haven't tried them before? How would you introduce them?
It can actually be very simple. You can introduce them into your learning, even in preschool, really.
Oh.
What you can do for a preschooler is they've only lived a very short time. And what you could do if they're, let's say, 4 years old, you could get a piece of paper, make 4 little marks on the paper, or 5 when you were born, and then little markers for the birthday years. And then if there's any important events in between those, you could say, oh, we moved this year, and it doesn't really have to be any more complicated than that. But a fun way to do that with the birthdays is just to put a little picture of the birthday party or them, eating a piece of cake.
Or a family picture, what the family looked like when they were 1, what they look like at 3, different things like that.
Right. And then as they get older, you can make maybe a more focused timeline where you do a timeline of an entire year, maybe. So there's a lot of different types of timelines. So I'm going to go over some of those, and then we'll get kind of more into it as we go along. So let's see. We have, this is a fun one. This is not normally recognized as a timeline, but I wanted to share it with you. This is, let's see if I can get it up there.
Yeah.
That is an embroidery calendar.
Mm-hmm.
There's the months here
Okay.
that you can see. And in those little months are pictures. And those pictures represent activities or maybe special events. I know you guys can't see it, but right here is the White House. Maybe they went to Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
That was in January. There's some balloons here for a birthday party. This is a fun way to represent a year. And you could set this up any way you wanted to. You could use this for history, which would be a really fun idea. So you could pick an event. Maybe it's a war, and it's, I don't know, maybe it's 5 years long. So you would break this up into different sections based on the year. And then you could put little symbols in there to represent the different events that happened, or draw a picture. You wouldn't have to embroider it if you're not into that or don't know how to do it. You can just draw. So that's one fun way and not typically used. So,
right. It reminds me actually of my grandmother. She documented something special from every year that happened by embroidering. She created the design, she embroidered it, and she made it into a Christmas ornament. So my parents' Christmas tree has years worth of big events all over it. And so it's kind of like a history of the family when you look at it. So that really, yeah, it's beautiful.
That's really neat. Okay, so we have one way that we can do it is by journaling. Actually, it doesn't always have to be represented in pictures, although you can put one picture and then write a journal entry about it. Maybe it's a year, maybe it's a day, event, that sort of thing. Really what that would be like would be notebooking. A lot of people like to do that. That's a way that you can do a timeline. Another example would be scrapbooking. Very similar. You can make it as simple or as complicated or elaborate as you like. Some people will make a book of centuries or use a timeline book. And that is a really great way. We've done that in our family as well. And I've seen, if you're in the masterbooks app, in the inspirations group, some of the grade specific groups, or you can search the hashtag timelines. A lot of members have shared what they have done there.
Oh, so that's a great idea.
Yeah. And a couple of them some used note cards. So it doesn't have to be in a book form. It doesn't have to be on a wall. The wall ones are really neat. A lot of people like to do that. You can make poster boards, or I've seen a lot of people put them on paper rolls or fold them up accordion style. So there are a ton of ways that all of these timelines can be represented.
I love that. So you can just be as creative as you want to, and then you can also use the different resources that we've published. So if you don't have time to get creative or that's not your thing, we have them set up for you. So I'm curious about, from an adult's perspective, how do they use timelines? How do you take using a timeline into adulthood?
Well, I really didn't have timelines on my radar until I started homeschooling. It's not a complicated concept. I just never thought of it in that way before. But after I started homeschooling, I gave a talk at our church about the Reformation, and I made a timeline and compared the different things that were going on during the Reformation with other events that were happening at the time. And so when Columbus came over, that was right during the time where the Reformation was happening. The printing press happened, and when you start to see how those events are all happening at the same time, a lot of aha moments go off in your mind, and it really gives a broader context for helping us understand what the time was like and understanding who the people are at the time and why they thought the way that they thought.
Yeah, it seems like a really great way to help a student's mind creatively consider time
Mhm.
and events, and then to be able to consider their own life within the timeline of history or within their own lifespan. So I really like that it's helping, because I'm a creative thinker. I like that it's helping them be very creative in the way they see things, because our perspective can be everything. And if we're too narrow, it's hard to take in the information. But if we have the timeline to look at it, it can really make a difference.
Yeah, and when you understand those things and you wrestle with those concepts, you're going to remember them a lot easier and be able to share some of those things with others.
Oh, that's very good advice. So let's talk about the different resources that Masterbooks offers and how parents can use those timelines within their history education.
Sure. So I wanted to go through some of the courses that Masterbooks has because I was actually surprised at the many ways that all the books use timelines. The first one, it's the Elementary World History Report. So it starts off here talking about how you're a reporter, but the students will start to make their own timeline.
Okay.
And this is a timeline of their life. And so they're going to start, I was born here. And then another example would be, this is when I started school. And so they're going to start making a very simple timeline. It's going to relate to them. And so it'll give them perspective in a way that doesn't seem irrelevant to their own lives, And then my son made his. It's very simple, but he did it.
Good.
Yes. And let's see. And then another way that it uses it is that throughout the entire book, it's going to have review timelines where they cut and paste events into there.
Oh, neat.
And so this book is for 4th to 6th grade. And that is one simple way that it reinforces it. But it also uses the big book of history, which I will show you. It is right here.
It's like 15 feet long, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really big. I will try to open it a little bit, but
yeah.
So
I think that's good. It helps show that it's in panels and you don't have to look at the whole thing at one time.
Exactly. It's the greenish color is biblical Christianity. There's world events, there's inventions in technology, and then civilizations and empires in the red. And it goes throughout here. And then one of the lessons, let's see which one it is. On page 33 of the teacher's guide, it asks you to go to panel 2. So this would be the first panel.
Okay.
This is the second panel. So that to help you understand that. And then I think the first assignment down here, there's a picture of a toilet here. This was the first use of, is it flushable toilets?
Okay.
And so that's where it begins. So that is a fun little fact there. And then as it goes on, it goes to, you see the biblical history. There's a slingshot here for David.
Okay.
And it also talks about other historical events that would be in a secular education, because really there's no difference between biblical history and secular history. It's just not usually taught at the same time.
Okay. That is so neat that your student would be able to see those two things lining up together.
Exactly. So down here, the Parthenon is built in Greece. And so like you said, is very big.
Yeah.
It pulls out, so it's really fun.
So we can have students or families can use that just as you are, like opening it up on a table for a specific lesson, but also we have seen people use it where they hang it on a wall, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it is sold on the website as panels if you want to hang it. You don't have to buy the case-bound version of it. I like this just because I don't always have space on my walls.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a fun way to learn history. And you can use any of the timelines that Masterbooks sells as a standalone resource. They go great, but I'm just going to highlight that one uses it in its curriculum for the You Report World History.
Okay.
But I'll show you some other ones.
Great.
And then we also have the America's Struggle to Become a Nation. And this is its teacher's guide, and it's called Timeline of the Revolution. Okay. So this is very simple, but you just focus on the Revolutionary War up until America was established as a new nation. So in the front of the teacher's guide, it says student journal. So this is that journal that I was talking about earlier. And it says, have students set aside a special notebook they will write in after each chapter until they finish the entire history book. He or she should pretend to be a child living during the time of the American War for Independence. The special notebook will be his or her journal kept during the time in American history. For each chapter, students should write 4 sentences describing the events in the chapter as if they happened to him or her or someone in the family. Mm-hmm. So, and then there's some additional projects where you can learn some songs. And so I wanted to show an example of a scrapbook because I think this would be, I don't have a lot of example pages yet, but you could start out, and this is just the title page, and then it starts talking about history and the value of history, and you can choose whatever events that you want. But here we started with the Tower of Babel and then going into the Aztecs, and so you can write something and then show a picture to go with it.
That's a great idea. So many people like to scrapbook. Yeah.
So this was actually part of my son's high school. You could do one for America's struggle to become a nation. So let's see, the next one is the very well-known one, America's Story.
Right.
Yes. So there's a lot of opportunities here. In this is the student book. There is a running timeline. Let's see, at the top of the page, there is one of these at the beginning of every chapter. So it's giving you kind of an idea of what's happening as you're moving through the chapters. Here's another example on the next chapter.
That's so helpful just to continue to remember where you are in the time.
Right. And then so that's the student portion, but the students are actually going to be making their own timeline as well.
Okay.
And back here, back in the back matter of the teacher guide, there is the timeline figures here.
Okay.
And those are going to be put on these timeline strips. So they will cut them out. And then I've seen people put them in a folder. You can do the poster board like I mentioned earlier. Or you can also use these timeline packs that are available. These are really neat. These would be fun to make note cards with.
Okay.
The pictures are so nice. They're in color. These also have the strips in color here.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then here's some of the timeline figures.
Okay. And so they would cut those out and put them underneath the time frame that they happened in.
Yep. And then we used the Wonders of Old book that Masterbooks sells. This was again, this made it super easy for us to keep it contained and to be able to take it with us, because we like to be able to bring our books places if we need to. And then let me open up. So we used the color figures. And this book is broken up right here. You can see the New World, the Modern World. This one has a flip up. There wasn't enough room. So that's kind of fun.
Okay, neat.
So there's all sorts of ways that this just can fold out, and if you need more room.
Okay. And so you and your family added those little pieces into that. Okay.
And so this is what it looks like blank. We didn't have this book when we studied this. So
okay. So we have the blank option as well.
So yeah. So you fill in those with the timeline figures, and this is the medieval time. So it gives the dates here and those little black squares.
So if you want to see all of Masterbooks timeline opportunities, you can go to masterbooks.com, click on books, which is the second tab from the left. And then when you click on books, you'll see timelines as the second to last option there in the menu. So that will help you go discover all of the timelines that we offer so that you can dig a little deeper.
All right. So now we move on to the world story. And this gets even more creative if you want to. So day 5, this is World Story 1, The Ancients. There is an assignment called My Timeline. So in the beginning, and it goes from creation to Adam and Eve to Jesus's birth, and then me, myself, and I. And so this is what my daughter drew.
That's some amazing art.
So that was really fun. That really, I love the color. It really brightens and makes it more fun, you know?
Sure.
Okay, so another example of a timeline and learning the timeline is filling in blanks here.
Okay.
Of the different events that they're learning about.
And that's still in World Story.
And that's still in World Story. So World Story actually gets pretty creative as far as using the timeline. So these are biblical civilizations, and you compare them. So this is biblical history and Egyptian history. And this is just meant for the student to study.
Okay.
So it's showing so many applications of how to use a timeline, think about a timeline. And then here they're going to demonstrate and make another kind of timeline. This is the life of Jesus, and you fill in these spaces, you draw in them, and you're actually doing this over multiple days. So you'll do it here also.
Okay, so your students that love to draw are going to love this.
Yes. And there's one here.
And
then when you're finished with all 3 of those panels, it's going to be the total of the life of Christ. And so you're going to connect them. So that's really fun there.
I love that, the biblical worldview of that.
Yes. And then World Story also comes with these timeline packs that you can put in the timeline book.
Right. Okay. So that's America's Story that you're holding up, but
I'm holding up the America's Story. I didn't have the World Story one, but they also come with the timeline packs.
And then those you can buy that are already printed, or you can buy the PDF so that you can print them, right?
Right.
Okay.
So next, to go with the World Story, you have another option, which I think is also fun because you can really get creative with this. So we have the Adam to Jesus timeline.
Yes.
That is great for the World Story 1 because it's showing the biblical history. And let me just open it up.
So that one is actually double-sided.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, I'll show this other side in a second.
Okay.
But it starts out, let's see. It starts out here.
Okay.
So these are the lines coming from Adam. Here we go, Adam. We have Cain, Abel, Adam, and then it goes down to Seth and beyond. And so it's really showing by the time you get, and then the numbers are at the top, it's showing at the how these lines carry on and lead up to like the flood.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're seeing, basically you're seeing the generations happening through these lines. And you can see how these people who lived led up to the birth of Jesus and how that was such an important thing, especially to the Jewish people who were keeping track of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then that helps prove that who Jesus is. And it fulfilled God's promise to the Jewish people. So you move from the flood on the previous page, and then closely following is the Tower of Babel. And that's where all the different people groups scattered from there. And then it creates a whole bunch of different civilizations.
Okay.
And then down here, there's different events that happened, and they go into it a little bit. Let's see, a little bit further.
Right. It seems like this would be something fun for parents to get involved in, as well as grandparents, aunts and uncles. They would be so fascinated to see. And you could even bring it for your preacher to see. I'm sure he would love to see the history.
These would be a great resource for Sunday school or any sort of teaching class or anything like this. And this one, all of these are pretty big, but this one is 13 feet.
Okay.
So it goes very far. So it's very big. But the other side is a picture of Jerusalem during the time of Jesus.
Wow.
And it's just.
And it's original art. Do I remember that right?
Yes. But this is a very old timeline. So that is a great resource.
It is. And it's made to look aged, right? It's made to look like a classic piece because it is from such a classic time, or such a, way back in history, that just the style of it is so exciting to me, especially for people that love old books.
Right. So that one combines biblical history and also some regular history, but this one really focuses on biblical history.
Okay.
This one is, let's see, it's the Leonard's Biblical Chronological Chart. And I'm going to open it up here. This one opens a little differently. Let's see if I can get this.
Oh, yeah. And this is Leonard's chronological chart.
Yes.
So the time is going around the whole border of the square.
Right. And you cannot see the amount of detail in this, but along the edges, there's just so much information. There's multiple streams of information along the border. And then there's just the maps, family trees, other maps. I couldn't believe how much information there actually was until I actually looked super closely.
Yeah, you could just spend a year on that one resource, studying that one thing.
And the reason that it goes with world story so well is because they actually talk about biblical civilizations in
Okay,
that
good.
particular volume. So
Mhm.
that was, I really appreciate that history book because it looks at ancient history and the way that a lot of other history books don't look at it.
Okay. So America's story is American history, and it has
Mhm.
3 different levels. Then the world story is world history, obviously, and there are 3 different levels spanning from creation through present time.
Yes, let's see. So modern day, the explorers through the present day.
Okay, great. And so the America's story is for more of elementary age students, like 3rd through 6th.
Correct. We
And
actually used it a little bit later, and I think parents could adapt it for that,
mhm.
but that is generally the recommended grade range.
Okay, and then world story is for like middle school.
Right, 6
Oh,
through 8.
great. And then for those of you who don't know, Angela Odell, who wrote the Math Lessons for a Living Education series, also wrote America's Story and the World Story. And she did such an incredible job. The way she uses story to teach is really just amazing. So we highly recommend using these timelines along with those series.
So I wanted to get a little bit into high school.
Mhm.
This is one of the high school history courses.
Right.
If you look at these don't really have a timeline element. So I wanted to share how we could bring the timeline into these books.
Okay.
So we looked at the Adam to Jesus earlier, but there's an even bigger timeline, the Adams chart. And this one is amazing. This one is 23 feet long. It is huge. So again, it starts with Adam and Eve.
Mm-hmm.
If I can get here. And if you look at the top, it has the family lines and it goes into the different people groups. And if you look below, it has different events that are happening. Here's some of the weapons that were created during that time. And so it's very similar to the Adam to Jesus, but it does have different information. So here's some of the hieroglyphics and cuneiform language. So this one, however, oh, look at that Tower of Babel.
Yes. Wow.
I love that image. It's just really neat. And then actually going out from these, you can see the different people groups really clearly and how the civilizations break out.
Right. These resources will be something you will use and your family will use for generations because your history is not going to change. And it's just done so well that you'll always be able to look back and find something that you're studying or interested in later in life.
Exactly. And this one is very popular. And this one goes all the way to, well, not present day because it's an old timeline, but more modern times. So probably the founding of the United States.
Okay.
Here.
Got it. And so that one as well, you can look at it panel by panel, stretch it out on a table, on the floor, or by the panels and put that on a wall. And I know some churches and some homes, people put them like down a very long hall or wrap it around the schoolroom, however works best for your household.
Right. And they have it on display at the Ark Encounter.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So if you've been there and you've seen their impressive timeline, this is the one.
Okay.
And then this is a new resource. This would be really fun to make your high school history more modern. This is the Big Book of Math, and it is a math and science and technology timeline. There's a little key here that tells what the different colors mean. So there's science and technology, mathematicians and scientists, world events in blue, and math happenings. So these are going to be, it does start out with Adam and Eve, and there's the Tower of Babel. So we're going to it's going to focus more on different inventions that have happened and just things that we don't think about, such as, well, right down here, we have the floor plans for the ark. We don't really
Wow.
think of floor plans back then, but
Yeah.
they had to have something to follow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this was also neat. In Principles of Math, they have different ways of doing math that's shown here.
Mm-hmm.
Right here talks about it. So this would even work with Principles of Math. Actually, this would work with math, it would work with science, but you could also bring it into your history for high school. And it would be a little bit different take than what we normally focus on, especially if you've already used some of the other resources.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what I love about this particular one, the Big Book of Math, it's teaching that biblical worldview of math, because you're getting to see how math is used in so many things that we use in life, and how the creator of math has allowed people to take those concepts and do such amazing things.
Yeah, and we really can't separate God from any part of our lives.
Right.
Because he's everywhere. He designed everything. And all these things he's given us in his world are just ways that we can honor and worship him.
Yes.
That is it for the math timeline. It also comes with this guide inside of it to help give more information and explain some of the different panels. So these are really great resources for adding to history, and if you're using the math one, a lot of other subjects as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to go through all the different resources that we have to help you families, homeschool families, make history come to life, make the Bible come to life, see the secular history that people would study in school, that you and I probably studied in school, and see it lined up with the Bible, see it from a biblical worldview. I'm just so grateful to work for a company that cares to make all those things come together so we can see all of life from this biblical worldview.
Absolutely. I really think it builds our faith.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so timelines are a wonderful tool. We have them set up so that you don't have to be creative other than to know to get it out and use it with this particular course. And as Desiree said, you can go into the Masterbooks app. You can search the hashtag timeline and see how other people are utilizing timelines or asking questions about our timelines and how to use it in your homeschooling. We want you to be successful. We know this is one way to be successful, is to use a timeline. And again, you can go to masterbooks.com, go to books, and then slide down to the second to last option there, timelines, and you can look at all of our timelines. We have free samples, PDFs that you can download so you can get a more up close and personal look at them. And we invite you to ask your questions about timelines in the app as well. So Desiree, thanks again for being here. Thank you all for being a part of the summit. We love serving you, and we hope to see you back at the next talk.